Howdy folks, welcome back to another video. This is the final video, video number 3 on the Voyager 1200. Again, final video, there will be no more. I can guarantee that. I have done made a lot of progress off camera rather, and I really needed to do that because there's a lot of stuff going on around here that I just didn't have a lot of time to film step by step as I went. I will go over it with you and kind of bring you up to date on it, show you some B-roll perhaps. I may talk a little differently because I had some teeth drilled and I got to get some crown work, so that's the reason why that is the case. I've had a crap load of leaves I've been picking up with the mower. I think over 30 bags now, and I'm only halfway done. And then we had our shower door explode. I mean, it literally exploded. A glass, frameless shower door, probably 2008, 2009 era. It was here when we bought the house. Overnight, it just exploded. We didn't even hear it. Now I'm dealing with that. So we really got to get moving on this thing. I got to get this out of here. I got other stuff going on out here as well. So with that, let's get right to it. I'm going to run through this real quick, then we're going to run it, and I'll show you where we're at. And we also got to do a synchronization. As you can see, the carbs are in, the new replacement lower air box is in. I got this in the other day. It is in great shape. All the tabs are intact. All the grommets are in it even still. And so I gave it a good cleaning. The rubber boots, the intake ducts rather, that were on it, I show you though, these are they. Although they were softer than these guys here, which are just plastic. They were nowhere near as good as the 4 of them I got from an eBay, the listing, that's what it is. From the eBay listing, these guys were in pristine condition. They must be from a newer unit. So I cleaned, you said unit. So I cleaned those up and put it all back together. Getting these guys, first of all, getting the carbs in on this bike is certainly the hardest one I've ever worked on. But with these rubber boots that yield, and this is a slotted hole. You can't tell from the other one because it was destroyed. But this is a slotted hole here, and you can move this airbox back just a little bit. It gives you a little bit more room. Then you shove them in, shove it. I also put new carb holders on beforehand because I wasn't going to fight those old ones again. Got everything together. I even got these little these little metal springy band dealios on there, which again are not easy, especially with everything else crammed in there, like the carb vents. It's just a pain in the butt. Like I've said a number of times in this video series, I don't really know what Kawasaki was thinking when they designed this monstrosity. I really don't know. No offense to you Voyager enthusiasts out there, but that's just how I feel about it. I have the upper airbox temporarily put in. I'm going to run it for you, and then we are going to take it right back off because there is absolutely no way to get at the synchronization screws. It's impossible to get at without the box out. So we're going to take that out and do a sync here. The first thing I'm going to do is a cold start for you. Let me show you something on the other side real quick. I know the sun's in a bad spot, but anyway, I got this side all set up. I got the overflow tank in, as you can see. There is like a little sub-overflow tank. I don't have it anymore. I factory deleted it because it had a hole in it. And that's like an overflow to the overflow that attaches into this top rubber hose that goes there. The main one from the radiator comes in from the bottom and of course goes up and down and fluctuates with the temperature and the fluid temperature and so forth. Expansion and contraction shit. You want me to get into the physics of it? I don't know. So I'm not going to. So I'm just going to run the drain down here. If this is kept proper as far as the fluid level, with all the work we've done on the cooling system, it ain't going to overheat and overflow anyway. So as long as the fan works, which I'll have to test at a later time and get this good and hot. It's like a German temperature rating, good and hot. So anyway, let's go back over to the other side. Never mind this. I'm still wrestling with front brake issues, but I think I got some stuff in this box over here that is going to solve the problem permanently. Just kidding. New brake lines in here, the kind that you can build a banjo kind of thing. So they take the JC03 fittings, the ones I use like on the Honda CB750 bobber. So I'm gonna break these out off camera later and hopefully get this thing straightened out because I'm pretty sure the hoses were trashed. So that's it on the summary. I don't think I missed anything important. If I did, I'll bring it up later. But let's go ahead and get you set up and we'll fire it up. That sun coming in those windows is gonna screw you up, so I'll put you over there for now. Sorry, you're gonna go in the corner. You've been bad. Do I have the vacuum caps on this time? Finally? Yes. Okay, here we go. So as you can hear, that's a hell of a lot better than it's been before. Remember, the jetting is 110s in the mains and 38s in the slows, which is basically stock. But it still seems to be a little rich. Well, that's just steam puffing now. It's actually pretty cool outside right now. So that ain't too shabby, folks. Fires right up, sounds good, idle's good. Now we definitely got to do a sync on it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut you off for a minute. I'm going to pull this upper air box off again. It's just loosely in there anyway. And then we'll put the synchronizer on there and see where we're at. I'm not sure if it's close or not because like I said, I think this thing still runs a little on the rich side, but that could be a synchronization issue if we had a carb or two that were way off. With 110 mains, the only thing I could do is go to 108s. And my gut feeling says it just doesn't need those. Because like I said, depending on where you read, it's either 108s or 110s for the mains. I think that should be fine. So anyway, let's get to the synchronization part. Contact. Well, actually, two of them are high and two of them are low. So what's happening is 3 and 4 is actually too close. But 1 and 2 is not bad. So really what this is a synchronization issue between the carbs. Because the way these work is you sync 1 and 2 together with one screw. Sync 3 and 4 together with one screw. And the center screw brings them together. Vacuum's high, that means these are closed more. So they're really close, so I'm going to go that center screw first. Bring the idle down. Starting to hear a little sewing machine. That's what I want to hear. Much better. So definitely with the offset between the two cylinders, two of the carbs were pushing, the two were not. Let's see if we can dial this in a little bit better. Pretty good. It's a little bit better, but when I bring the idle down to where it's supposed to be, you hear that D-cell pop. Well, that also could be the fact that we don't have the main air box in. So, can't really go off of that. Let's go ahead and put that main air box back in and try it again. That was a half an hour of my life I'm not going to get back. What a pain in the butt this is. I just could not get those to go over without folding in one corner or something, one part of it. We know she's synced, so we're good there. I don't know why she loads up when you start. I think the battery's a little bit crappy. That sounds good now. That was it, yep. I might back these off back to 1/4 turn in. I'll show you that here real quick with this Motion Pro tool on number 4 carb. The way this works is, note the location of that, 1 click, 2 clicks, so that's 1/4 turn. So I'm gonna bring these in a 1/4 turn. What you do is you reach in here, kind of wiggle it around, and then start turning it, find the slot. It'll drop in. You'll watch it drop in, you'll see it. Takes some time. There it goes, see it drop in? And 1, 2, that's 1/4 turn. I just think 2 1/4, 2 1/2 is better. Smells good, looks good. Again, this is moisture. You see right there, it's still a little chilly out here. The engine's not warmed up yet. That's what I want to hear right here. All right. We finally got a really good runner right now. We won't know for sure until I take it out for a shake, but I gotta deal with this mess. All right, let me put my crap away, clean up a little bit. The next clips you're gonna see on this, I'm not sure what they are, to be honest with you, because the rest of this crap I'm doing all off camera. I think we're gonna come back when this thing is ready for a road test. That really sounds like the most logical thing that we're gonna be dealing with here, because I still gotta deal with these brakes, and I already told you I got a bunch of other crap going on, so we'll come back then. It'll be just a few seconds for you, probably, I don't know, days or hours for me. Catch you then. All right, folks, so quite a bit of time has gone by since the last clips, but as you can see, she's pretty much done. There's been a lot I've done behind the scenes here. Just couldn't film it all. A lot of different stuff. I'll go over it with you briefly. Made a couple of B-roll clips to help illustrate the challenges. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and take it for a shake here in a minute, too. Now, full disclosure, I did have it out yesterday, and runs really well, and I'm real happy with that. I'm not happy with the brakes. And I'll go over that here as we cover that, but I'm pretty much out of options as far as anything else to do with that. So anyway, let's get right to it and I'll explain what I mean. Okay, first thing first up here. The customer said that the radio worked. And I never heard it work when I had it in here, you know, turning it on, turning it off. I never heard any noise out of that, except maybe one time I think it went bzz, something like that, I don't know. There was no way it was working, at least not in the not in the understandable vernacular as far as it actually functioning. You know, is it lit up? Yes. Is it here? Is it present? Yes. But as far as whether it was working or not, I question that. It is now. We can turn it to the first position here, and you push this button here. This is where the problem was, and it turns it on. So that all works. I don't know about the tape because I haven't had cassette tapes in 20 years. Unfortunately, there's no Bluetooth capability to this, like plugging in something. That's one thing the customer asked about. So there's no way I can do that. And I had the radio out. The whole radio, I mean, outside the fairing and everything, had to take it out. Now the problem with it was, up here, as you can see, what I just touched in the last clip was this button here to turn it on. You press, it says right there, push on. And you push it, it goes on. Well, what was happening was you could push that, nothing happened, and when you pulled back on the knobs, either one, this is essentially a circuit board in itself that these are attached to, and it's connected by a ribbon cable, and this thing was just moving back and forth. So in other words, you couldn't actually detent it in to the on position because it was separated from whatever it's mounted to. Now I assume there might be one of those like stem nuts, you know, that go on here, but that's not the case. And I tried pulling these off, put a good amount of force on them, they didn't come. So I said, I can't be it, and there's no set screws in them. That's when I decided to take this thing out. So I took the trim off. Of course, the fairing wasn't on at that time. I hadn't put it back on. I had to take, this whole section here has to get flipped back with the speedo and everything. And then you can bring that out the front. It's a long explanation, and there was been no way to film it. The problem was, inside here, there is a screw that holds this assembly in to this back panel, inside, this front panel, I should say, from the back side. So that screw is missing. Now, where the hell is it? I don't know, because it wasn't inside the radio. But what you could do is you could just move that thing back and forth, and I'll show you a little B-roll clip on that. It'll just move back and forth, and you can see that place, or that piece that it's mounted to, moving away from the hole in which it screws to. So I got that all done. Luckily, I keep a bunch of tiny screws in stock. I had exactly the right one for it. And so I got it to the point where we could use it again. And again, I do not know where that screw went. There is evidence that somebody's been inside here. So based upon what I saw, I think somebody took it apart, saw what the problem was, probably didn't have a tiny screw to fix it, and put it back together. It may have been working, and the first time I disconnected the battery, it reset it, and so it wouldn't come back on until it was toggled on, which couldn't be done, you know, because of the problem I already explained. Next thing is right here, you can see, if I can get you up here, there's one of these rubber caps that goes over top of the forks there. Well, I lost that one. I can't find that one anywhere. I do not know where it went. So that is missing, but the radio's fixed, as fixed as it's gonna be. And what a pain in the butt that was. The engineering, I don't know what they were thinking when they engineered, well, I don't know what they were thinking when they engineered this whole bike, but in particular, this part up here where that radio is, I don't know what they were thinking, because it is an absolute disaster to get this thing out. Let's talk about brakes. I am not happy with these brakes at all. I really am not. And I have tried everything to get the sponginess feel out of the handle. It is not as solid as I'd like it to be. Now, it stopped yesterday pretty well, and the rear's a little spongy too. I can't get that out either. Master cylinder is a replacement. Used replacement, but the bore is perfect. It is one of the best looking bores I've ever seen, even on a brand new one. It is a perfect bore. That's a Brake Crafters rebuild kit. I've got the proper .4 fluid in here. I've done everything to the book, even replaced the brake lines up front here because, you know, they could have been expanding. There's old ones from '86. Rebuilt the calipers with the appropriate rebuild kits. I reused the brake pads, but they're in good shape. I just cleaned them up. And I just can't get a good solid feel out of it. I have bled this. I have run over a quart of fluid through this, and I can't do it. It just won't get any better than it is. I don't know why. So there's no air in this system. I've bled it from the banjo up here, the two banjos up in here where they connect together, and of course the banjos down at the individual ones and the bleeders. Now on the American Voyager Association forum, there's a post, and an old post from like 2008 about problem with these things with something to do with that flat spring that goes inside there that the pads rub up against or push up against. And it's supposedly a little tang that gets between the piston and the pads, and that's not the case on these. I don't even know what that person's talking about because I took this apart this morning, looked at it. There's no such tang. There's nothing coming anywhere near the piston besides the pads. So I honestly don't know what it is. It might get better as the pads break in because, you know, I cleaned them up. You know, I usually do a little sanding on top of them to break that surface glaze on them and then clean them up. But there's nothing wrong with them. But I do not like how spongy this is. I mean, you could pretty much pull it all the way back to the bar, and it should not do that. I just don't know why. I can't get it any better. I have tried and tried and tried and tried. If any of you guys out there have any suggestions other than, oh, you need to bleed it, I don't need to bleed it. This is bled. I'm confident there is no air in this system. If you have anything else that you can add to that, please do, because I cannot figure this one out. With the new brake lines and everything new, the only thing that's not new is the pads. And again, the pads look perfectly fine. They're not, you know, in other words, the material, the friction material in relationship to the body of the pad, well, here, I got one right here. It's a different pad, but you get my drift. The friction material, that's not much left there, but the relationship of the squareness of the face of the friction material to the back of the pad, I measured it up with a dial caliper and they're perfect. They're not tapered. They're not angled, they're not anything. So I honestly don't know what the deal is with them. I'm just hoping they're gonna get better, but I cannot do anything else. I'm out of options. It did seem to get better yesterday as I rode it, so we'll see what happens when we take it out here in a little bit. So we covered the radio, covered brakes. Let's see, what else did we get into here? Oh, the obvious. We got new skins on front and rear, so new tires. Those are Kenda something or others. Kenda Cruz, K-R-U-Z, Cruz. They weren't easy. I had to use the Honda Gullwing bars. These bars that come with the you know, the Nomar tire changing kit. This came with mine, but they're stuff you have to buy extra. These are the Gullwing bars, the ones that you use for Honda Gullwing front tires, my understanding. And you have to really put a lot of leverage on those. I had to use those on the front, but not the back. But I got them on and balanced up and everything's good. The steering head bearings were loose. I took it for a ride yesterday, it would clunk. I could feel it go clunk when you went over a bump. And so when I took the wheel off for the tire today, I kind of grabbed the bars and I could feel it moving a little bit. You loosen the big nut and then you just tighten the spanner underneath it, the spanner nut. When you tighten this back up, it's going to pull that back down onto it. This is what locks that spanner in place. Then you just tighten these guys up on each side for the forks. Bob's your uncle. So it's actually pretty easy to do. Tested it afterwards, no more movement. So we're good there. Now, I guess that's about it. I can't think of anything else right now. There's a lot of stuff I've been doing to this thing, but those are the major things. Anyway, what we'll do now is, well, let's get this thing down. And then I'll run it for you. We'll unstrap it and we'll go take it for a ride. I can do only so much as far as recording while I'm moving. I'll use my old GoPro, my original GoPro, and it's not going to be the best footage, but at least it'll be something. I broke my tripod. Well, not intentionally, but there's only so much super glue can do. All right, I'm gonna give you a little enricher. We are not in neutral. Well, that ain't good. Oh, that's from me pulling it up on the lift yesterday, I bet. Contact. That battery is suspect. Tell you what, I'm real happy the way it runs. Be careful, fat guy on a motorcycle. All right, that's not all the riding that'll be in this video, but I had to cut it short because we got a couple of problems, so I had to bring her back. The steering head bearings were loose. Bearings were loose. Bearings were loose. Oh boy. Well, look where we're at now. Yeah, I could not leave it. This is a safety issue. I've been reading some material online about this bike, and this one in particular is real sensitive to steering head bearing looseness or issues and can cause a death wobble, you know, a tank slapper. And that's a safety issue. I can't let something with a safety issue go. I've always prided my work on making sure that I at least address all the safety issues on a particular machine. I don't care what it is. So in this case, it's the steering head bearings. They're in good shape. The actual bearing itself on the lower steering head, which is usually the one that takes a shit, well, actually the race does, is in nice shape. There's no problem with that. Very little grease in there, but no problem with that. So here's the race on the bottom. Well, the race is in good shape. There's a couple of marks on it, like nothing you can feel with your finger or anything from where the bearing was sitting. And that's real common. A lot of times there's like notches in it though, you know, from where it sits primarily in its centered position with the wheel straight when you're driving down and you get that banging a force, you know, of banging of the suspension, you know, boom, boom. It'll make some dents in that race. It'll actually impact it to the point where when the thing is tightened properly, you'll actually feel it notch when you put the steering in the middle. It'll be like a detent. That is not the case on this. Let me show you the top one. The top one is okay. You know, it's not bad. It's definitely usable. I don't have to replace these, but you can see there's some of those same marks. They're not anything I can feel. They're more like scratches. And that's evidence of the looseness of the bearing. So when this thing was going down and it kind of just clunk clunk like that, clunk clunk, when it does its thing with the, when the wheel goes over a bump or something, those marks are from that kind of like banging. If it goes too long, it'll damage the races beyond, use. So you have to replace them. These are not bad. I'm just going to re-grease them and put them back together. Here's an older race from apparently a lower steering head bearing from something. I keep these around to use them as actually bearing drivers, or race drivers. I can use them to drive other things in because they're the right size. So anyway, you can take a look at the inside of this and you see how it's all marked up. It's actually got lines in it. You can actually feel those when you rub your finger across them. So this would be an example of a bearing race that is certainly non-usable and would give you a very notchy feel when the steering was turned, when the handlebars were turned. Obviously, we don't have that situation. We have just little marks, which you can't feel. So again, that's the beginning. Essentially, the little marks that you can't feel is the beginning of what happens at this level when it gets too bad from a steering head bearing that either is too loose and banging around or gets corroded and eats away at it. This one seems like the former and not the latter. All right, so here's the bottom of the triple tree. Since the bearings are all good and everything, I want to put it back together, but I didn't have the right tool for this spanner, so I banged out a spanner socket for it off camera. There'll be a midweek machining coming out on that. You'll see it later. So stick around if you want to see that, but I'm going to be able to only film very limited amounts of this. I'm going to get it done because I got to get this done. Since I broke my tripod, there's really no good way to put you close enough to see it anyway. All right, so here's where we're at. The end of the day. Today is Friday rather. I wanted to have the video up for tonight. I'd like to release on a Friday, but not gonna happen. It's getting late in the day here, so it'll most likely be Saturday tomorrow. Now, so I've got everything back together. I just don't have the wheel back on, but the forks are in, the fender's on. I've got all the wires, I think, routed correctly. They were not routed properly before. That took some time to do because I had to move some stuff around. We just have to do a couple of finishing touches up here and this part will be done and readjust the handlebars. But what I ended up using on that spanner nut, of course, was that tool I made and it worked perfectly. I was real happy with that. Now, I found a video on YouTube from the American Voyager Association Northern California chapter. It's an old video, and the gentleman does the whole deal as far as the steering head bearings on a Voyager 1200. I followed what I needed to follow in that video because I was already at a certain point, but I followed his procedures in regards to torquing up that spanner nut. I'll link to that video in the description if I can remember it, but I'm not going to explain all that. You can look at the video. But I think it's really nice as far as the feel. I like to adjust them so when there's no wheel, no weight on it, it takes just a tiny bit of force to move it, and it doesn't keep moving. That's how I've always done these. And again, I followed the procedures that the gentleman had in that video to get to this point. So we'll get back on her tomorrow and hopefully this thing will be done. We'll take it for another ride. I'll film a little bit more video riding it, but that clunking, as I was describing before, with that front end, I just could not leave that. So. Alrighty, it's that time again. Let's go ahead and give her another shot. Take her out on the road and see how she goes. All right, guys, that's it. This video is over with, and this project's pretty much over with too. We came a long way on this one, didn't we? I mean, what did we start with? Non-runner, brakes are locked up, and the thing's puking diarrhea coolant. I mean, how much worse could it have gotten? Let me tell you about this bike here. This bike, I can see what the draw is from some people. It's actually quite a fun bike to ride. It's fairly nimble for its size, and it gets up and goes. I mean, you can really zip it around corners and stuff. It has like no ground clearance though. I mean, compared to the Concourse, which you're sitting on right now, I mean, this thing is basically a shopping cart. And it's smooth, very smooth. I have no vibration in handlebars. There's no vibration from the wheels as far as the balancing goes. It's very smooth. It rides great, it really does. And again, it runs very well too. There's still a little bit of clunk up front, and I'm not sure what that's from, but I suspect it may actually be wheel bearings. I have that steering head bearing very tight. Now, I'm not sorry I did that work, and I can't charge the customer for it because we're maxed out. But I needed to do it to make myself feel better. Now, the other thing is the brakes are better. I did some creative work. You're gonna love this one. On the lathe, while the front wheel was off, I took the rotors off the front wheel, put them up on the lathe. Now, I couldn't turn them or face them or anything because they're too hard. You know, if they were cast iron, it'd be no brainer. But I did some other stuff, and I'll shoot it in here in B-roll. It cleaned them up real nice. I indicated them, I measured them, and re-indicated them, and they're only a couple thousandths out. So they're actually in pretty good shape in that respect, but the surface features were just so rough. I wanted to kind of straighten that out, and it is a little bit better. The net sum is I believe it needs pads. Again, we're way over on the budget. I can't just throw any more parts at this right now. It's something the customer's gonna have to deal with in the future. So yeah, this was a long, in-depth project with all the extra stuff that I did. So anyway, if you want to see more crap like this and other jobs coming up, like for example, we've got the KZ1000 hopefully coming back in here in a minute, maybe not a minute, maybe a week or two, but we got to get the cylinder head back from New Hampshire, and hopefully that's coming in soon. We'll get that one back running and get it out of here. We've got other stuff going on. There's 2 midweek machining videos coming out soon. I also got to do some work on the Concourse, which you're sitting on right now. Don't scratch the bags, and we'll get to that as well. You might enjoy some of that content. So until then, as always, don't just repair, restore. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.